Hey, hello everyone. My name is Eric Gu. I'm the founder of Metaverse Foundation. I founded the Metaverse Foundation in 2016, inspired by the book written by Neil Stevenson. The book name is Snow Crash. In that book, Neil first time mentioned Metaverse. The buzzword now is very, very hot. I think it's inspired by the crypto NFT craziness right now. So it's a pleasure to have James here. I'd like to chat with James about the NFTs and Metaverse. James.
Hi, everyone. My name is James Cantre. I've been in the space for about 8 years, more or less, working professionally about 6 years, in working all kind of products from public blockchain exchanges, wallet, recently NFTs. Very recently, I did an exit of a company, and also I've been an avid collector for the last 2 years. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, see, I know James for a long time, and I noticed that he started to collect NFTs like 2 years ago. Was that right?
A little bit more, but when I started collecting NFT, it was more out of curiosity to see how the technology worked. But then about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, then I started to do it in a more systematic way, having like a goal in the process of collecting.
Yes. So I think James has some really impressive records of having the first Beeple's NFT, right?
Right. Yeah.
And a year ago, you came to me, a year and a half ago, right? You came to me, like, say, let's start an NFT company, a marketplace company, right?
Yeah. Back then, it was like I was undecided. I was like, it's either NFT or DeFi. But then I was like, DeFi might be too complicated from a regulatory perspective. And I was like, I think the safest is NFT. Plus, it's more fun.
Yeah, it is definitely more fun. So thanks to James, I started to collect NFTs as well. I'm not a particular art person, so my collection is more on the virtual lands, collectible cards. Unlike James, you have a lot of art, right? You're like artist type.
Yeah. I prefer to collect what could be considered fine arts in the NFT space. But I'm also slowly getting into the collectible community just to learn about it, because things change so fast in this space that sometimes it can be really difficult to keep updated. So I'm trying to be in the collectible space to learn about the new technology, because a lot of the new innovations is happening on the collectible side and not on the fine art side of things.
So I'm still always wonder why people like to collect NFTs. For myself, I do believe that because really inspired by the book of Snow Crash, I think we as human beings, we slowly entering into this virtual world of metaverse, right? So the real estate in our real life, the houses and hotels and everything will become virtual. So I myself, out of my interest, I like to collect virtual lands, right? So, but I like to hear from you why people like to collect other like digital form of NFTs.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, because when I try to explain NFTs to people, sometimes the first reaction, it's like, why people buy something digital when it can be easily downloaded, right? Like, you have an NFT, and right now, very soon, we're gonna start seeing more marketplaces where only the owner can access the NFT and things like that. But I'm talking exclusively what I've been seeing in the past months or 1-2 years. Anyone can go to one of these marketplaces, right click on an image and download the image. Now, that doesn't mean that that person owns that asset, right? So I think the first question is like, why someone wants to buy something that anyone can have access to? And the way that I like to explain this, and people around me are probably tired of listening to this explanation, but it's like a few years ago, during the Miami Basel, there was this artist, Catalan, that he sold banana with masking tape. I don't know if you remember that. and that went for more than $100,000. Now, the collector of that art piece was not buying the physicality of that piece of art, because the banana in a few weeks will get rotten, right? So what the collector is buying is just a certificate that says that he owns that concept created by Catalan. So when the collector, says a German collector, goes back to his gallery in Germany, using that certificate, now he can buy another banana, put the masking tape on the wall with the banana, and still say that that's the original. Now, if I buy a banana and put it on the wall, I don't own it. I don't have the certificate of ownership. So in that sense, that's what you're buying is the concept, not the physicality of the art piece, right? This started probably like 50s, 60s with Sol LeWitt. He was an artist considered the father of minimalism, but also conceptual art. What he was selling, it's like, you know, when you go to IKEA and you buy a furniture, they give you like a booklet with instructions on how to build it. So Sol LeWitt, he used to sell his that kind of like booklet on how to create the installation of his art. So the MoMA Museum, for example, what they own of Sol LeWitt is nothing physical. It's actually that booklet. So every time they want to do an exhibition, they use that booklet to replicate the art piece, and that can still be considered the original, because again, what he sold was the concept, not anything physical. Now, going back to NFTs, I like to think of NFTs somehow in a similar way. What we are buying is not the pixel. We don't know those pixels. Anyone can have access of those pixels. Anyone can download it. But what you're buying is the concept. Now, the owner can go to the metaverse or even to a real gallery and say, I'm the owner, and this is what I'm, you know, like, this is my collection, and gives him the right to resell it, for example. Another way to understand that is, you know, like philanthropists, they like to put a lot of money into in basically sponsoring, let's say, libraries, and then the library take the name of the donator, right? So that's another way to see it. As a collector, I can pay a lot of money just to put my name besides that particular art piece, and now I become a patron of that specific artist. So these are different ways to understand why people get engaged with this kind of like new digital art forms.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, and I realize you just mentioned the word metaverse. It's really buzzword right now. You know, my understanding of metaverse right now, I think it's really a good place to put all the NFTs together. So you have music, you have painting, you have all kinds of other like land. You have collectible cards. People might feel that it's a piece and bits everywhere. So it would be nice to have a metaverse that you can log into, that you can have an aggregation of all the NFTs together. You know, and a lot of people talk about metaverse. They always think metaverse as a game. Actually, I think metaverse is way bigger than a game. It could be a way of e-commerce. It could be it can be a place to educate people, like online massive education learning experience, right? A lot of things can put into like metaverse, not only game. I think this is a huge. How do you see this industry will be in 5 years?
That's a really good question. I do agree that we need a space where we can interact with all these NFTs, regardless if they're fine art, in-game assets, collectibles. Now, I think the big challenge is how can we make these NFTs interact with each other? Right now, and this is a problem that we also see it in other spaces like DeFi, that blockchains, they're kind of living in silos, right? It's not very easy to make them communicate with each other. That's still one of the big challenges from a technological point of view. So I think there's still a lot of work to get done here from a technical perspective, because right now current metaverses, so you can basically take an NFT in idea, right? In theory, you can take an NFT that was tokenized in one blockchain and another NFT that got tokenized in another blockchain and showcase them in the same room, but it's still not like, I still haven't seen proper metaverse where they can interact with each other. And if we want this metaverse to look more similar to real life, we need to find those kind of solutions. So I think that in 5 years from now, that's something I would like to see, like a more integrated space where these NFTs can talk to each other and these assets can become way more interactive and not just to showcase them.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. We're still in a very, very early stage of this industry, this technology. A lot of things needs to be refined, maybe redesigned, who knows, right? But as investors, let's say smaller investors or institutional investors, what do you think we should be investing? Are we seeing a bubble right now, or do you think it's a good time to invest? Yeah.
So I do think we are in a bubble, because I think that the current prices don't match the current utility of the technology. But the way I like to see it is that people understand the potential of this technology. So it's a tricky question, because I do think we are in a bubble, but if we think about the potential, then everything starts to make sense. So it's when we look at the .com bubble. So the .com bubble basically happened because people were, it was a crazy period of time. People understood the potential, but at that particular moment, the technology was still not matching the prices back then. Now, when we look back, if you take like a trading chart and put it like in a logarithmic scale or even in a linear scale, the .com bubble, like it's almost like a little bump compared to current prices. So I think that in 10 years from now, the total volume of NFTs will be way higher than the current volumes that we are seeing, even though right now I think we are overvalued.
Yeah, I like your analogies very, very well, because if you compare NFT market right now to .com bubble, there's some similarity. Like some of the assets value, the individual asset values are in the bubble. Mm-hmm. The overall industry are undervalued.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, if you want to buy particular high-priced NFT right now, it might be a bad investment. But the overall NFT industry will be, I think, will still maybe 10 times, maybe even 100 times potential. Yeah. I think.
Totally agree. So I think that from an investment point of view, the current valuations that we are seeing shouldn't be a detractor, shouldn't be something to discourage people to get involved in the industry, because I think that as a whole, in a few years from now, we're gonna see like prices will be like total volume will be way higher than the aggregator, right? In aggregation will be way higher than now. So I think that what we need to start looking for is to technology that can help precisely what we were talking before, like how can we make these assets to talk to each other, to make them more interactive, to create a smoother experience. All this, like those are the technologies that we should be looking right now to get invested, because we cannot unbake the cake, let's say. This technology, it's here to stay, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, okay. So James, do you mind to share some of work that you are doing right now, or can you share something?
So I'm
or your own interests.
Yeah, well, my interest in the NFT space is two different spaces. One more on the side of marketplaces, and how to gamify marketplaces. I've been working on that for quite some time. I cannot speak much about it, but basically that. And then in the fine art space, I have a collection using a name called La Virgen del Crypto, which could be translated to something like Our Lady of Crypto. I'm not a religious person, but I've decided that I wanted to create a curated collection because I was seeing a lot of collectors buying random things and there was like no intention behind the act of collecting. So thinking about it, I was like, okay, what's one of the most millenary curated collections in art history? And that's religious art. So I went out there to the space and started looking for all kind of religious art in the form of NFTs. I started collecting all of them, and then I built a chapel on CryptoVoxel and put all this collection over there. And it was a success. People started saying like, this is super cool. And then other people started doing something similar because in the beginning of NFTs, people were just, like collecting randomly. But then people started seeing that a lot of these things can be done with intention. And if you do the act of collecting with intention, you can actually take it to a very serious exhibition in a gallery. And it's very valuable. You start seeing, because one of the big problems was that digital artists, they were more considered more like, like these kind of like freelancers doing like logos, branding and things like that. But I think that one of the beauties of NFTs is that it helped people to see digital artists as actual like fine artists, and people are seeing the value, like the fact that people sold an NFT for $69 million, right? Like maybe there's nothing intrinsic in the style, that cost $69 million. But the way I like to see it is that collector saw the opportunity to inscribe his name in the history of art,
Right.
And so it's like when that person bought that NFT for $69 million, basically he was joining the books, right, of the history books together with people, because it's the very first time that we can create digital scarcity using blockchains, thanks to blockchain technology, right? So, and now we can finally take a digital art, prove that it's scarce, and sell it in the same way that we can sell Picasso, for example. So I'm very interested in this kind of field, and also I come from a background in philosophy. So lately I've been working a lot on thinking about these concepts and trying to write some small articles to philosophize on all of this, because there's a lot of philosophy certainly in everything that is happening right now, because it's such an abstract technology. But that's from the philosophical perspective. Users don't think about this when they go in the process of buying. It's kind of like they intuitively understand it. But then, you have crazy people like us that likes to make philosophy out of it.
Yeah, I forgot you're a good author. You already written 2 books, right? I got an invitation for me to write a book about metaverse. I think you should write 1 or 2 chapters for me.
Yeah, sure. It can be like a really interesting experience. I feel like in the process of writing is or explaining to people. Sometimes people ask me things about NFTs that I don't have a clue, but then in the process of trying to explain it, I understand it better myself.
Yeah, the best learning is by teaching. I understand that.
Yeah.
And your religious art collection is really amazing. Me, pretty boring. Yeah, so virtual real estate, right? So lands. But I think, yeah, I think a lot of there will be a lot of boring collectors like me out there too. So NFT is a place that everybody's imagination is the limitation, right? So I think this is a great industry for the investors.
Definitely.
I do see a huge opportunity.
Another field that I'm very interested right now, which is not as much in the technology itself, but it's more on the curation side. because we like right now, in theory, we can create millions and millions of NFTs on daily basis. So, you know, even though there's this notion of scarcity in the NFT space, the fact that anyone now can tokenize, that means that in potency, we can have millions of them, right? So once you reach that point, it's like in music, you know, like I remember being a kid having only 2 or 3 albums, and you know that was those 2 or 3 albums were very, very valuable to me. So I didn't have any other albums. But right now, when we have like apps like Spotify or YouTube, where basically we have all these songs, you know, in with just one click away from us, then what becomes really important is the act of curating, creating an experience, right? So that's why we pay to go to a party, because then the DJ create a curation of songs to create an experience. This is something that Andreas talks about. He likes to do that analogy with the music industry. And I think it's also true in the NFT space. We have so, like, for example, you go to OpenSea and it can be overwhelming, you know, like it's like so many NFTs, right? So I think that there's going to be a lot of value in the act of creating curations and filtering, you know, and I think that can be one of the big values of the metaverse. If we go to a metaverse which is curated somehow, and then you go there, and what you're paying for is to have a particular kind of experience, not just having. Most likely, all those NFTs are available on OpenSea, but then they are all spread around, right? So you cannot have that experience of being in a space that someone put the thought, okay, this is the experience I want to create for you.
I think you just give people a great billion-dollar idea. So create a metaverse to allow regular people to curate their own interests. Right? That would be so interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there are a lot of ideas, you know, that waiting to get built.
Yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, I'm excited to be in this industry. So I think that our time is up. So thank you everybody for listening in. Thank you, James.
It was great.